course, the thing that we use tomatoes for the most is dicing them up to put them in fresh preparations. But I'll show you how to do that in a moment, but I just want to make a couple of comments first in case you want to use them for other things in your cooking. So if you want to make a beautiful pasta sauce from scratch, most of the time tomatoes are peeled. If you want to take the skin off tomatoes or other foods with skins on them, you can just make a little X in the end like I did with my paring knife, and you could dunk them in some boiling water just for a few seconds, just enough so that skin starts to peel back and it's loose enough you can peel off. And that's a good way to get the skin off of the tomatoes, but still have them largely be the texture of a raw tomato that you can use in another dish. I'll show you how to dice them here in a second. I'll just go ahead and pull the stem off this. In terms of picking a tomato, really whatever kind you want for the dish you're going to make is the right type. It's best to have, a plant ripened, summer, fresh, in-season tomato. It's going to have so much more flavor than a hothouse tomato or something grown where it wasn't ripened on the vine. If there's that little bit of vine adhering to your tomato when it's picked, then it will actually continue to ripen while the vine is attached, but it stops ripening when you remove that for the most part. Sometimes you can get a little bit more with some, some science involved, but it's not going to have that same taste as if it's ripened on the plant. So for dicing the tomato, especially for our pico de gallo, we want to get a lot of the seeds and the juice out because it will water down our salsa. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut it in half. And you can see that that exposes all the seedy, juicy parts. And that's true if you have a beefsteak tomato or a Roma tomato. And then what you can do is just give it a light squeeze. You can get a bowl underneath, give it a light squeeze. It loosens up some of that juice and seeds. And you can just flick your wrist and get some of that out. You can also get in there, dig around with your fingers. If you have cuts on your fingers, tomatoes are acidic, it does hurt. So you might want to wear gloves if you have any cuts or scrapes on your fingers. Just take the last little bits out, and then you have mostly the meaty part of the tomato. That's not going to water down a salsa or some, another fresh preparation that you're making it for. Do the same thing here. I'm gonna get my white coat out of the way. And so you can flick it, get in there and dig around a little bit, flick it some more, and it's going to do a good job. Some people use this for other things. I'm just going to discard it for now. All right, so if you have smaller tomatoes with the stem that is, really not too easy to see, then you can leave it in, but this is going to be kind of unpleasant. So when we get to this, we'll cut that out. But for now, I'm going to make this into 1/4 inch slices because we want small dice for our salsa. So I'm going to hold it on the cutting board, and you can see it's going to be really hard to work with. If I try and hold it up like this, even with my fingers tucked in, it's just going to be hard to get any sort of even slice. So what I'd recommend doing is putting your fingers on top, putting the nice flat surface down on the cutting board, and then just cutting straight across about 1/4 inch up. You can slide that off, go up 1/4 inch again, just make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. And if you can't be sure that you have your fingers out of the way at that point, you can always flip it up and try and finish cutting through so your fingers aren't underneath. So now you have 1/4 inch pieces of tomato. We'll go ahead and go in here with our paring knife, and I'm just doing like an ice cream cone shape where I'm angling the tip in and then cutting a circle. That's going to get your stem end out of the tomato. And we'll just do 1/4 inch slices again. And there are many ways that people do this. I'm just showing you one way that I feel like is likely to keep you fairly safe chopping, because this can be slippery. It's something that you can easily slip with and run into trouble with cutting yourself. So we want to do dice. You're obviously not going to get a perfect dice because this is not a square, squared off piece of fruit or vegetable, which, fun fact, tomatoes are actually fruits and they are used for culinary purposes mostly like a vegetable, but they are truly a fruit. So I'm just going to cut about 1/4 inch slices here. You'll hit the tomato in some places and not in others, that's okay, but I try and keep it all lined up and then turn it 90 degrees and then cut 1/4 inch again. Might have to reline up a few pieces that slide out of the way. When you do that, you end up with 1/4 inch dice. So that's going to make a really beautiful pico de gallo salsa. And let's say you want to do tomato strips, or you want to have, a nicer appearance for a platter. So you can also, instead of cutting it the way that I did, you can just cut off to the side a little bit. You can dig out those seeds. Let me bring my bowl for juice back here. You can just dig out those seeds. And then you can slice it this way. It's going to be easier to cut through on this side, so if your knife is dull, I'd recommend cutting from the inside out. But I have a nice sharp knife, and it's easier to put the flat side down on the cutting board to slice. So if you want to make some wedges, you could do this. You could certainly just remove the core and do it with the whole tomato as well. But this is a nice way to get the seeds out at the same time. You can get any residual ones. And so you have that. Let's say you want to actually have, I'll cut it directly, so it's directly in half. You can see what the wedges look like if you leave the seeds in, if you want it more for a salad and you like the seeds. So we'll cut out that core, put the flat side down. And then just like we did with our saute slice with our onion, we're going to cut in a rainbow. So we're just going to cut around the tomato like that. When we get halfway through, it's easier if you turn it around so that, you know, if you're ambidextrous, maybe you don't have to turn it around. You can switch hands, but I certainly find it easier to turn that around. You can make thinner ones like this, thicker ones like this. I just wanted to show you a variety, so I did it a few different ways. With these thinner ones, what you can also do is if you've de-seeded it, you can also, you know, you can make finer slices, or, you know, you can cube it up that way as well. So again, many different ways to kind of tackle this tomato. But again, the small dice that we did first was what you'll use for the pico de gallo. Otherwise, there's just a variety of other chopping techniques for your tomatoes.